Hello everyone, and thank you all so much for joining today's event. Our webinar is focused on the student clubs here at London Business School. These are part of the LBS community, and today we are joined by a few of our students to share their insights and their experiences with the activities that go on campus. So welcome wherever you are, and thank you all for joining us. So to begin with, I'll just run you through what we will be discussing today. So because we're joined by students, they will each have an opportunity to introduce themselves so that you as our listeners can kind of get to know them a little bit better. We'll be discussing a little bit about the LBS community and the diversity at the school. And we'll also be diving into the activities, clubs and the different groups that you can definitely be a part of and that our students are a part of, and they'll be sharing their experiences with us. They'll also shine a light on some of the student-led events that they have taken part in, and we'll be closing with the Tattoo and Sundowners events that happen on campus. And finally, we will have a short Q&A at the end of the session, just in case you guys have any specific questions you would like to ask our students or ask myself. So I'll just introduce myself quickly. My name is Malak Hamoud. I am the Student Recruitment Manager for the Early Career Programs. So without further ado, I'll just get into our students' introductions so that you can get to know them a little bit better. So here we've got Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, everyone. I'll just give a quick introduction of myself. So I'm an MBA in 2021, which means I've just come to the end of my first year. My background before the London Business School was I spent 5 years in investment banking in London, 3 years at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and 2 years at Evercore. And slightly prior to joining London Business School, I became the founding team of a tech-enabled recruitment startup called Talent Ladder, which I was pretty excited about. Within LBS, I'm co-president of the Entrepreneurship Club and on the EXCO of the Russia Club, which I'm happy to explain what that is. And most recently, I've launched a podcast called Write It Out at LBS, where I interview founders and VCs that are LBS alums, which has been fantastic. So happy to talk about that as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Catherine, for your introduction. And we'll be joined by Cindy later on. She's just a little late. She's running a little late for the webinar. So we'll jump into Shira's introduction.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shira. I'm originally from Israel. Before coming to LBS, I was an associate at the Israeli Ministry of Finance at the Global Debt Department. We were issuing bonds denominated in foreign currencies. I hold a bachelor's degree in math and economics and a master's in financial economics. I also worked at a high-tech company in Israel, and I did my military service in the intelligence force at the Israeli Defense Force. Currently, I'm a student at the Master's in Finance full-time program. I came to LBS to make a career change. So after talking to investors as part of my role in the Ministry of Finance, I decided I want to learn more about investing, about PE and asset management. I'm also an EXCO at the Israel Club. I'm a track leader. So me and other track leaders were organizing an amazing track that unfortunately got canceled because of COVID. I'm also a student ambassador, which means prospective students reach out to me and I provide them with information about my program and LBS in general.
Thank you so much, Shira, for that. Such an interesting background. And we'll move on now to Serena.
Good afternoon or morning or evening, everybody. My name is Serena Grillo and I'm a current Masters in Analytics and Management student, which is part of the Early Careers portfolio for people with 0 to 2 years of work experience. Prior to LBS, I was a data analyst at a French investment bank, and I really joined to move into tech, so for a career switch. My undergraduate was in economics and computer science, and things that I've done in LBS other than academics are being part of the LBS Tech and Media Club and being part of the ASL committee, which was a competition for African entrepreneurs in partnership with the Africa Club. And I'll be happy to talk more about those two clubs in more detail later on.
Great, thank you so much, Serena, for that introduction. So as you heard, you know, all three of the lovely women that introduced themselves today, you can tell that they all come from very diverse backgrounds in terms of what they had studied, their interests and, you know, career paths and experiences. So I think this is a great introduction to kind of speak about the LBS community as a whole. We obviously offer 12 different degree programs. Each year we have around 2,200 students on campus, and there's over 130 nationalities represented, so very, very diverse, and we've got a huge alumni network as well to go along with that. So my first question to you ladies today is, how would you describe the LBS community in your own words? So maybe Catherine, would you mind going first?
Sure. I think I would describe it as incredibly collaborative and very kind of open. And I think that's kind of a sentiment that's been echoed from before you start business school, before you enter LBS, if you want to reach out and speak to anyone, people are very open to give their time. I'm also a student ambassador, so I speak to a lot of prospective students, and I return all phone calls, all text messages as well, because I think that's a really important part of the process. And also during me launching the podcast, I've been, you know, reaching out to some pretty great founders that are very busy at the moment. Some of their businesses have been doing well, like EdTech space. Some businesses haven't been doing as well. But I think everyone has made the time at least to speak to me and at least respond to my email, say, hey, I'm really interested in being on your podcast. No, I'm not. So I think the community is very open, and it's almost frowned upon if you're not willing to be kind of collaborative and sharing with your classmates. And I think that's a huge differentiating factor vis-a-vis some of the other schools that are a lot more competitive. We are also competitive, but not with each other as much.
I really agree with that. Thank you, Catherine. Does anyone else want to add?
I would definitely echo Catherine's points. I think if I were to... Oh, I think my signal might be a bit off. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Just to add to Catherine's point, I think the one word I'd use to describe the community is welcoming. And I really got a sense for this even before I had become a full-time student. So like Catherine, I reached out to people in the LBS community in my application process and found that people were incredibly helpful. I came to events such as this, albeit in person, where I got to talk to students, faculty and staff members, and they were also welcoming and encouraging. And I think for me, that's what really stood out to LBS, and that type of welcoming spirit has continued throughout the year in I guess reaching out to classmates or people in other degrees, in talking to faculty. Faculty are really open, as Catherine said, and welcoming in kind of not just teaching you, but learning from you, or kind of encouraging debate and really kind of, I guess, again, making it more of a community feel and a collaborative effort in the learning process, because I could definitely say that I learned as much from my classmates as I did my professors, and I think that has been one of the best parts of the LBS learning experience for me.
Yeah, I think with such an enriching amount of diversity, it's a shame if you weren't able to learn from your peers. So I absolutely agree with you, Serena. And I don't know, Sherry, if you had anything else to add before I move on to my second question.
No, I think
they covered all of the points, didn't they? So my second question for you then will be, for people listening, what would you say they gain from being involved in the community at LBS? Just overall, what would you say would be the key things that they could possibly gain?
I think the network is incredible. As Catherine and Serena said, it's a great community. Everyone is always willing to have coffee, chat, give advice. You can learn from other people's professional experience. Alums are also very friendly and willing to help. Plus, the community is very diverse, so it really enhances the learning experience, and discussion in class and outside of class is very fruitful.
Yeah. Great. Fantastic. Thank you, ladies, for sharing that. So I just have a little bit of a short video here, just trying to make it as interactive as possible for everyone. It's just a little introduction to the kind of clubs, activities and groups that some students are involved in. So if you want to put your sound on so you can have a little listen before we dive into our questions.
What do I love about LBS? It's so hard. There are so many things that I love about here.
One of the things that's been great outside the classroom while I've been at LBS has really been getting to see people through all the different clubs and activities.
You get to meet people not just within your own circle of friends, but also in other programs.
For me, it's all about maximizing what the school offers.
Despite this utter and complete lack of medical training, I provided the cure for a patient with blood cancer.
We hope you leave the summit today with new connections and ideas to seize these opportunities.
Favorite activity has been MBAT, which was a super fun day when all of the class got together and compete in sports and just have a really nice time.
I joined the club of sports business. I was able to find a full-time job out of it, so I feel truly grateful.
I helped organize a lot of the conferences, including the TEDx LBS, which is one of the highlights of my year.
One of the particular highlights for me has really been Tattoo, where we were able to put on an event that showcased all the different cultures that are represented here at LBS.
It was a mix of cultures. It included food, dancing. It was just amazing.
The Diwali party, which was amazing because I saw so many people from different backgrounds cherishing India, enjoying Indian food, enjoying Bollywood music. It's a must attend.
Treks and the student-led activities have been wonderful. I think my favorite trek was definitely the Portugal trek, which was super fun.
I think Greece was definitely the highlight. Visiting all these various places, partying together, I don't think there's anything that can beat that.
What I will miss about campus life is the immense diversity that I am exposed to every single day here in London Business School.
I think I'll miss familiar faces with a very warm smile.
Thursdays getting to see my classmates at Sundowners every week.
Sundowners is absolutely fantastic. It's an incredible way of meeting people.
It's an amazing time to be on one of the most beautiful campuses and hanging with your friends.
I think the whole community and all my friends and how we're all so united, I think I'll miss LBS as a whole. I'll really miss it.
I've made some really good connections. I've made friends for life.
I loved it with all my heart.
So I just wanted to share with you guys that video as a sweet introduction to the kind of activities that a lot of the students take part in. I thought it sums it up very well. There are a few things that you probably heard and you're thinking, oh, what does that mean? So our students can definitely dive into that a little bit further during the panel and the Q&A that we have. But just as a whole, I just wanted to kind of cover the main points. As you can see on the screen, we've got over 75 student clubs and we have over 1,000 club events that we run per year, and we have over 150 student leaders obviously put together the conferences and the treks and different activities as well. So I thought maybe we can start with a few of your responsibilities as being part of these clubs. So I know, first of all, Catherine, you were one of the co-presenters of the Entrepreneurship Club. So maybe talk to us a little bit about your responsibilities and maybe why did you choose to get involved in that club?
Sure, that's a really great question. So kind of my initial thesis for joining business school came from investment banking. I was going into private equity. It kind of felt like a nicely kind of trodden path. But a few months before business school, got involved in this startup, really liked it. and then kind of thought, geez, like I knew a lot about investing anyway. So I wanted to explore something new, and I decided that I was going to immerse myself in kind of the entrepreneurship world and start talking to startups. I had no idea a lot about the trends, I had no idea how the VC investment model worked. And so by joining the entrepreneurship club, not as a kind of committee member, just going to the events was a really great way for me to get exposure to kind of all of the things they were doing. And then I found myself speaking to a classmate who was organizing the hackathon. A hackathon, for those of you that don't know, it's a 3-day event where a bunch of coders and business people come together, and nice kind of designers that make things look pretty, come together and solve a business problem. And by the end of it, you present to a panel of judges your kind of MVP or minimum viable product. And then based on that, you get some sort of funding to actually implement your idea. And so I got involved in that, and I thought this is pretty cool. And so then I decided to kind of apply to become president of the club. And what that means is, it means that the club is 3,000 members, which we put on events that are not just speaker series. We're now fundraising for a new fund. We have launched something called Launchpad, where it's kind of a simulation for 8 weeks. If you have a business idea, you develop it, and in the end, you pitch it. So I basically oversee all of those activities alongside my 3 other co-presidents, because it's a massive club. So there's quite a lot of responsibility involved in ensuring that we give the LBS students the breadth of it kind of events that we do, but also to ensure that they're delivered up to LBS quality kind of standard. So yeah, it's been quite a lot of work.
It does definitely sound like it. So you've definitely been keeping busy. As well as obviously having your studies aside that. So that's fantastic. I just wanted to ask Shira, because I know you mentioned in your introduction slides that you're involved in the private equity and venture capital club. So obviously a lot of students who are maybe interested in finance, who maybe want to do their MFA or the MIF program like yourself, are probably going to be interested in the way that sounds. So what do you think has been the gains of being part of that club for you?
Yes, so the PEVC club is an extremely active club at LBS. It organizes a lot of speaker events. For example, we had an investing in esports event with Adam White, the CEO of Edge. We discussed investing in the gaming industry that is even more trendy now when everyone is locked in their houses. The club also organizes really great high quality modeling workshops in which you can develop your modeling skills. And it also organizes case competitions. So I think the most meaningful experience for me at LBS was the Harvard Global Case Competition. So when participating in these competitions, you first form a team. It's a great opportunity to get to know students from other programs. Then you get a case, you work on it as a team, and you submit your work. The best teams are selected to present their ideas in front of a panel of judges and answer the judges' questions. So for the Harvard Global Case Competition, we had an internal round organized by the PEVC club at LBS, and then other rounds were organized by Harvard, and we competed with schools from all around the world. It was a great experience for me. I learned about new industries. I practiced my modeling skills. And we even made a pretty cool video since we couldn't travel to Harvard to present in the final round because of COVID. So these competitions are amazing learning experience. They're a lot of fun and look great on your CV. So I would definitely recommend participating.
Absolutely. I think you've all got that competitive spirit as well, which I can kind of see, which is fantastic. And Serena, I know that you're doing the MAM program. So I wasn't surprised when you said that you're involved in the Tech and Media Club. So did you know that you wanted to get involved in this? And what were kind of your gains from that experience?
Yeah, I think I can definitely say I knew from early on that I wanted to be part of the Tech and Media Club. It is a passion of mine. It's why I'm kind of pursuing it as a career now. And I think especially in LBS and me being part of this new course, the MAM, it being the first technical course, I kind of saw that there was a gap in that the current students or even the school probably needed help with understanding what the MAMs would need in terms of advice on applying for tech jobs or further developing their technical skills. So that's why I joined the Tech and Media Club as specifically the skills and careers officer. So I did this for two reasons. I'd say one, to represent my class, the MAM and the MAM's interests, and two, to learn from other people within the club. So the role of clubs generally, or at least the Tech and Media Club, is to educate students on the specific club niche, let's say, and then also to engage with external people, so whether those be businesses that are recruiting, people who are academics in the field, and then as a club officer, you're kind of that middle person between the students and those external stakeholders. And for me, I think that's where I got a lot of benefit, in that I was actually able to reach out to many companies or people that I would later have conversations with about, you know, personal interests or just general kind of catch-ups about the tech industry. And then I really did see the value of my work impacting others in my class. So I worked very closely with the careers service at LBS to help kind of build out a roadmap for what the MAMs need in terms of the skills that they want to get from LBS and the career advice that we would need specifically for the careers we were hoping for. And I think there's numerous examples of this. So even in the MBA space, another TMC club officer, Giri, he actually helped devise the new, I think you call them, are they tracks? The MBA tracks? Feel free to chip in if I've got that completely wrong, but basically with the MBA, you can specialize in a specific field. So you can have MBA specialized in PE, but there was no MBA specialized in tech. And Giri realized that this was a big kind of gap that the school hadn't addressed, when if you look at the most recent statistics, 30% of MBA graduates were going into tech, and he basically put together a very comprehensive case for having this tech specialization in the MBA, and that's been rolled out for the 2021s, I believe. So things like that, you can really have a real impact through the clubs.
That's fantastic. That's now going to be represented. And I also love the point that you said about supporting the Career Centre with the MAM. Obviously the MAM students, it's the first year that we run the programme, so obviously any kind of support in that is fantastic. So well done, Serena, for being involved in that. You know, for our listeners who are, you know, listening to obviously all of what you guys said today, it's quite clear that, you know, there are the four kind of main groups that these kind of clubs fall into. You've obviously got the professional interest clubs, the social, the sport, the regional. It's quite a lot. So my question to you guys is, how were you able to manage it all alongside your studies? Because I think this is a regular question that we get, and maybe any top tips?
Yeah, I can take that. So there are endless opportunities at LBS. And I think that you should really decide early on what you want to focus on and try to do as much as possible in that area, but also try to also get out of your comfort zone, try new things, and just develop yourself, because you can never know exactly what your journey is going to be like. So try to be focused, but also try some new things.
Yeah, I think I would definitely echo that. So for example, I was trying to be a lot more focused on kind of entrepreneurship and like venture capital events when it came to the professional interests, just because on the same evening, depending on the clubs you're part of, you can have up to 20 different events. So you do have to be quite focused. But then when it came to more social things, I think I was fairly open-minded. I even tried out improv acting, which I thought it was really terrifying. But it happened to be a really amazing class, not just because it gets you out of the comfort zone, like you mentioned, but because you get to mix with some of the other programs, so the MFA, the MIFs, the Sloans, which are more senior, the executive MBAs more senior, even some faculty members came to the improv acting classes, which was pretty cool. And then there's other social events that are organized, but are not always part of clubs, but they have like little breakout streams. So like the Spanish people, like the Latin Americans go to Mestizo quite a lot. So that's something you kind of go join and experience a bit of reggaeton. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say the way to manage it is rigorous prioritization. I think I've never used the calendar app so much than this year as a student at LBS. And as my colleagues have said, you will have days where there's perhaps 5 different events you want to go to. You physically can't go to both. I think my personal best is probably going to 3, and those are actually on in different buildings. So I literally would run from one event 10 minutes on Baker Street to the other campus, and it was just ridiculous. But I think, kind of to my point, you just have to get a bit used to the idea of FOMO. You're not going to be able to do everything. So as I said, just rigorously prioritize. And also another tip that I picked up was to kind of, I guess, conflate your activities. So by that I mean, okay, you might want to have a social activity, perhaps go study with a friend in the library, kind of do 2 things at once. So yeah, I'd say those are my top tips on how I handled it, just about.
Yeah, no, because it's definitely a regular question that we get, and it seems like it's quite tempting to be involved in all of these things. But of course, like you all mentioned, prioritizing is key. So that's great. So I just had also some videos as well to share to introduce the types of student-led events that we have. So I thought these 2 are quite interesting. I think they're relevant to what's going on at the moment. So if you can have a listen, that'll be fantastic.
I'd never been a part of any kind of LGBT group before I came to LBS, but now being a part of the Out in Business Club, being a part of organizing this Year Out conference, I will definitely continue to do diversity and inclusion stuff going forward. Year Out is Europe's leading LGBTQ+ conference. It's entirely organized by students at London Business School and brings together almost 500 participants, about half of whom are graduate business students, and about half of whom are alumni of the LBS program. It feels like a really professional event, but the reality is it is completely student-run and it is a labor of love.
We have another video here related to the Women in Business conference that we run yearly. I believe this year was the 20th anniversary, but we've got a video from the 18th.
We are here at London Business School event, Women in Business.
We need more women in politics, in parliaments, in political parties, in power, in economy, in businesses.
The UK is hanging on to a lot of legacy issues that have been around for a long time.
Looking forward to breakout sessions with Brandon Peterson, who obviously is one of our professors at London Business School.
I want to go into a more leadership role, and I'm expecting to gain a few insights.
I'm here because I'm interested in promoting the gender equality, and of course I'm interested in an ambassador scheme that London Business School is highly promoting.
It's about taking action. Firstly, support people around you who are in a minority, whether that's women, whether that's gay people, whether it's people from a different background.
You need the CEO or a senior leader in the organisation to say that we're just going to do this.
One of the big messages here, and one that I would fully support, is you have to confront bias when you see it.
Men are standing up and advocating for gender equality.
Gender equality, empowerment in partnership with men is just the best thing.
You have to equalise maternity and paternity pay. and that is either increasing paternity or it's taking maternity down.
And the world isn't going to get better unless we have those conversations, even if they're a little uncomfortable at times.
Are we getting women in the door? It's about, what does our culture say?
The process that women go through is really different to what men go through.
Diverse and inclusive businesses perform better. They deliver better results.
My takeaway was, how do I take action?
My favourite moment of the day was the panel discussion on ambassadors and the importance of bringing men into the conversation.
One of the things that I'm going to build into the company is just making sure that it's an inclusive team.
Together, we will make the change that we need to see, and hopefully that will be in our lifetime.
So I thought these topics were quite interesting, like I mentioned, because they're quite relevant to kind of what's going on now. And I just wanted your insights. You know, it's great that, you know, it's nice to see that you're all females here. So your insights on these sort of topics and how you think this distinguishes LBS as a school in the way it's thinking and the kind of students and graduates and leaders that we're trying to kind of build for the future.
Yeah, I think one of the speakers put it really nicely. It's about having those conversations, even if they might be uncomfortable. And I can definitely say that, like my LBS experience, there have been times where people have had to have uncomfortable conversations, but it's always been met with welcome arms and welcome ears. I think these issues on diversity are very important right now. And I feel like LBS its heart is in the right place, rather, in that it's trying to address these head on. So even recently, in response to the Black Lives Matter movement and the anti-racist protests in London, a bunch of the Black students at LBS actually got together and decided that we wanted to form some type of D&I initiative around this. We've not really kind of sorted out the details, but we emailed the dean and he responded right away, and he was very open to have the conversation with us. So I think it really does show that from the top, there is this support behind D&I initiatives, and I do feel like LBS is addressing it, not just for themselves, but also for us as students, because these are things we're going to need to consider more and more in our, I guess, careers.
I completely would echo Serena's words about people are prepared to have difficult conversations, and I can give you a personal example. So the Women in Business conference, I actually attended the one in the video before I was an LBS student and the one this year. And there's a number of men also, or people in my class that are ambassadors, which I think is totally great. But I was sitting in a lecture about organizational behavior, and we were talking about biases, and the professor played a video and basically kind of showed a female being discriminated against. And some of the guys, they were a stereotype, but they were acting, you know, in an uncanny way. And one of my classmates put his hand up and kind of said, well, surely that just doesn't happen. That's just an extreme version of reality. And I think quite a few of the women kind of said, hey, like, no, just because you're a nice guy, you wouldn't do that. This actually happens, which actually kind of led me to do a talk. We have a panorama series, which means that when the whole class is together after one of the lectures, someone talks about a topic that's very kind of close to their heart. And I did a topic on diversity and inclusion and kind of said in it like, hey, these are biases that they're unconscious. Maybe you wouldn't do that, but so-and-so might feel excluded for various kind of soft factors. And I think it was really interesting to this person that mentioned the initial comment that he was kind of thankful to me for bringing up the issue, even though it was uncomfortable for me to give a very personal talk to a room of 80 classmates. People are very kind of open to engaging in that conversation. And I think it doesn't matter what initiatives are going out, whether it's women in business or out in business, all of it, you know, Black Lives Matter, all of us kind of rally around them and are kind of very supportive of those.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's a great sense of allyship amongst everybody. I think one of my classmates gave a similar talk on his experience as a gay man growing up in India. And I think I kind of love the personal aspect of that, and it kind of even inspired confidence in me. And I think this is the kind of open community we have, and it's really a testament to that.
Wow, that's so interesting. Thank you guys for sharing that. And I just kind of wanted to ask, in terms of your experiences, have you guys attended Any kind of sort of student-led events, or is there anything that comes to mind or anything you'd like to share with us?
I'm happy to share my experience. I attended the VC track, the venture capital track in London, and worth flagging that there were two. One was in London, which was over a 2-day period, and there was one in Silicon Valley that unfortunately got cancelled. But that track is kind of one of the professional tracks that you previously mentioned, organized by students. We spent 2 days, 5 meetings per day, meeting various venture capitalists in their offices. The groups were fairly small, about 20 students. And we really managed to kind of get under kind of the bonnet of what that particular VC's investment strategy is, what were kind of their top star investments, what are some of the challenges. And typically the person speaking to us was an LBS alum. So they had this sort of level of empathy. They understood our question, where we're coming from. So I thought that was a really kind of a great way to get to know the venture capital world that can seem very closed off and opaque from the outside. And then the other kind of bit I wanted to mention is some of the case competitions. I know Shira mentioned a few of them. I actually was the finalist in the INSEAD private equity competition, and we presented at INSEAD, and I thought that was a really interesting opportunity. That is kind of student-led, to go there, compete against some of the other schools and get real-time feedback on our pitching. Unfortunately, we didn't win, but we were runners-up, so we were very proud.
I'm sure you did a good job to be runners-up, so that's great. Shira, I know you mentioned that you're part of the Israel Club, and you said you were a leader of you're putting together the trek. I think it got cancelled because of the situation. But could you tell us a little bit, I mean, if it were to go ahead, what would have been the activities like? And what were you kind of planning for that trip?
Yes. So yeah, we were organizing the trek. It was supposed to be amazing. A lot of students registered, but unfortunately, as you said, it got cancelled. I actually talked to students who went on the trek the previous year, and they said that it was one of their best experiences at LBS. They got to visit Jerusalem, the Dead Sea, north of Israel. So it was a good mix of culture, learning, but also they went to Tel Aviv and got to experience Israel amazing nightlife and food. So yeah, it could have been great.
Hopefully things can get back to normal soon and we can start kind of putting these things together again. So just wanted to move on and kind of talk about the tattoo event that I know so many students rave about. And I think for a lot of students I've heard, it's one of their highlights. So I just kind of wanted to hear from you what your experience was like, what you've heard about it or what you know about it. And what's the concept? I mean, I think Shira, you were involved in some sort of performance. So do you want to share some light on that?
Yes, so Tattoo is probably LBS's biggest event. It's a traditional event in which the different clubs celebrate their diversity with the music and dancing and food. It's a huge performance, very exciting. I got to perform there in a group dance with the Salsa Club. It was amazing. Our group took weekly salsa lessons with a great the Salsa Club instructor was amazing. We really took it seriously. It was a lot of fun, but I believe participating in the more social clubs has more value than just having fun. You're extending your network in the best and most natural way possible. And if I may add, the tattoo after party in a nearby club was also pretty great.
That's great. And Sundowners is obviously regularly happening on campus. So if anyone kind of wants to give us a little summary on that and what it's like.
Sure, I'm happy to. So Sundowners, basically imagine the space where you grab your coffee and sandwiches during the day, where every Thursday evening that space gets transformed. And it means that you get free alcohol. So free beers is sponsored by AB InBev. We're very proud of it. And each week it's kind of themed. So for example, one week will be the rugby club takes over the space. We'll have special, I don't know, banners. The other week might be like a snow club that takes over and they'll have their own merchandise. And the people that are part of the snow club will be pouring your beer. I think there's beer, Prosecco and something else. And basically everyone in the school is invited to attend, including partners. And it's a really great way to serendipitously, can't say that, but I randomly meet new people. So kind of I bumped into an executive MBA student. We just got chatting. Turns out he was the neighbor in Dubai of my best friend at the MBA who also lives in Dubai. And so I was like, well, what are the chances of that? So you make these like very random connections, but it feels like organic. You're in the kind of LBS community in their own bar. So yeah, it's definitely a highlight, and a lot of alums worth mentioning if they're hanging around the campus, because we do have an incubator for the businesses. So alumni do tend to stay on around campus for a while. They do drop into Sundowners every Thursday. So it's kind of like a must place to hang out.
Yeah, and I can also say for staff, I've also attended a few. I remember the Halloween one, the Halloween themed one was fantastic. So yeah, it's just a place. It's a safe place for everyone to kind of gather and network and really just chill out, which is great. So I just want to obviously thank you guys for sharing so much about your involvement. And I just noticed that all three of you guys are actually ambassadors. So student ambassadors. I know that there is some sort of recruitment process for that, but I just kind of wanted to ask you, why was it that you chose to do that as well, along with all the other involvements that you're taking part in?
Yeah, so I would definitely say for me, it was my way of giving back. So I think I mentioned it earlier, I reached out to ambassadors myself in the recruitment process. And for me, those people were what convinced me LBS would be the place for me. So I kind of wanted to give back and provide that, I guess, reassurance to incoming students, or someone that you could just ask a few questions about, read over your cover letter, because I quite enjoy doing it, even though it was stressful. The process of applying it was kind of enjoyable, maybe sadistic way, but yeah, I generally enjoy talking to people, so I guess it's a bit of that as well.
I think I can say, because obviously I work in the recruitment team, we get so many questions. So I can definitely say you guys as ambassadors, you make our jobs so much easier. And I think a lot of prospect students, they want to hear from the students themselves. And you guys have experienced it. There's only so much that we can say as staff, but I think it's just way more organic when it comes from you guys. So yeah, does anyone want to add to that, or?
I would definitely echo Serena's point about wanting to give back. I actually reached out not just to student ambassadors at LBS that were doing the MBA, but people in my personal network that I had worked in banking before, that were LBS alums, and they made the time for me out of their very busy investment banking jobs to have coffee, explain to me. And there are subtle nuances when you're thinking about different schools. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to compare it on paper when you look at the websites. But when you speak to people, you have very specific questions and they actually make things come alive. And I thought there was a kind of, I really appreciated the feedback. I did get people to read over my essays, and people were very generous with their time. And so I thought it was very important to actually make time for future applicants and students, because I know what it feels like to be on the other side of the table and be stressing out. What do I put into this little mini essay? Do I put this answer somewhere else in the application? Kind of like, oh my God, my ending to the essay doesn't sound quite right. So yeah, it was just a way of giving back.
That's fantastic. And I guess my final question for you ladies today is, you've obviously shared so much about your involvement, and you got to kind of see your personalities a little in today's conversation, and the questions and answers that you gave, and learn a bit about your interests. So for the people who are listening today and the prospect students who are really keen to join the community, what kind of things, I mean, how would you really describe the perfect LBS student, or what kind of student would kind of add value to this community? Because they're obviously thinking, wow, they're involved in so much. How am I going to fit into all of this? So if you could give them some tips or maybe some insights, that would be fantastic.
It is an interesting question, because I think you can definitely say no one student is the same. Everyone comes from a diverse background. I know we keep saying it, but it is the truth. But I'd say the things that we all have in common, or what makes a really good LBS student, is someone who is open. I think sometimes people might kind of misinterpret this as, oh, extroverts, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. But someone who is open in that they're willing to learn from people and share bits of themselves with the students and the community in general. I think that's probably one of the key things. And I'd say a second point is someone who is ambitious. I think everybody I've met at LBS has different ambitions, but they are ambitious ambitions. And I think that's something that really kind of, I guess it could fuel competition, but I think it kind of invigorates me in that I kind of feed off of the energy I have around me. And it's just, yeah, I think that's maybe another good way to put it. Someone who's energetic and ambitious and enthusiastic. I think those are the key things I would say.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think certain schools are very well known for specific things. Like if you think of Stanford, you think about entrepreneurship, engineering, MIT, for example, Wharton, you think about finance. Whereas with LBS, it's difficult to pinpoint because we're a lot more diverse. And by that, we mean that there's no one mold that we're known for, right? You don't just go, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur at LBS, but if I want to do finance, that's not the school for me. So it doesn't matter what background you come from. Also, it doesn't matter if your GMAT is like crazy high or, you know, slightly lower than you want it to be. So it's about kind of having that diversity of experiences and that curiosity, saying, okay, well, you worked in a demanding job, but like, what else did you do on the side? Did you take additional initiatives? Did you kind of go out of your way and do some more extracurricular? And why that bit is super important is that when you come to LBS, a lot of these amazing events like, you know, tattoo or sundowners, even snow trek, are student-led, which means that we do a lot on the side alongside our studies to benefit our classmates. And so that proactivity you've demonstrated previously before coming to LBS should hopefully carry through so you can kind of enrich the community further. I think a student that isn't as suitable for LBS, if you just want to go to the classes, go home and, you know, watch Netflix, like that's cool, but probably not like what we're looking at LBS. If you want to go to your classes, do a bunch of other things and be very open to meeting other people, that's kind of the vibe.
I 100% agree with you both. And I think the point that you made, Catherine, is super important because as a school, I can say that we look for long-lasting relationships with the students and the alumni. And I think that's what makes our community so close and tight-knit. So when you were saying that, you know, some alumni made some time for you in order to kind of go through some things with you, or if you had any questions, they were really open to that. We always look for individuals who are going to add value to the LBS community in those sort of ways. So it's great that you did mention that. And I think as a school, we want to make sure that you have the environment to excel as much as possible, because the more you enjoy you know, your studies, the more you're going to obviously speak highly about the school, and hopefully that is going to, you know, your experience at the school is going to open up the doors for you in terms of your career as well. So that network is what we really work on, and that two-way communication and long-lasting relationships. So thank you all so much for obviously answering all of my questions. I'm just going to open it now to Shira for her to just share a few of what's going on. I mean, share some knowledge on what's going on in these lovely pictures that you actually shared with us.
Sure. So here on the right, you can see a picture from a tattoo. I think it was before the performance, so we're a little bit nervous. Here we have, oh, that's the LBS, the MIF Christmas drinks. It was really nice. We had a lot of free drinks, and we went to Winter Wonderland after, everyone together. We have a picture here from one of the MIF's birthday at Primrose Hill. Another one is an afternoon tea party with LBS students. And yeah, and there's another picture here of a, yeah, we went to a pub, me and my friend, and it was completely by accident, and it was a meeting of the Central and Eastern Europe Club. We just saw them there, and we were like, yeah, I'm from Israel, he's from India, but we're like, yeah, let's join, let's have some fun, and they were really happy to have us there, so it was also
That's great. It looks like you had so much fun.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that. So now I'll just kind of leave it for anyone who has any further questions, to our listeners who have any direct questions to myself or the ambassadors today. So feel free to type up any questions related to the topics that we spoke about today. So I'll just go through those now.
Yeah, I have been trying to type some answers as we go along.
Oh, right, okay.
There's many questions and I only can type so fast.
Right. Okay. And if you guys see any kind of interesting questions, feel free to read them out or answer them directly here.
Can I just talk about a little bit about the recruitment process for clubs?
Yeah.
As I've been recruited into the Entrepreneurship Club, and now I'm going to do the recruitment in September myself. So the way it works is as soon as you hit campus mid-August, end of August, typically a lot of the clubs hold their kind of kickoff presentation, which is kind of welcoming new students to LBS, to the club, tell the students what they've been up to, previous events, and what are the positions that are open. So for example, for Entrepreneurship Club, we have something, we have a committee of 40 to 50 students that help us actually run the club, is that big. And for example, one of the events we host is Tell Series, which are kind of very famous founders. Think about like A View from the Top in Stanford, they have this where they come and give kind of a keynote speakers event, which is a very well sought out position within the club. And so we would ask you to apply for that CV kind of cover letter, and they will hold the interviews. And then there's a kind of selection process. And by the end of that, you're appointed to be the point person for the Tell Series. And then you hold that position for 12 months. Once you've held the position for 12 months, then you typically are eligible to apply to be president of the club as well. So we do tend to look for students with track records that have interest in something like entrepreneurship, or if you're looking to transition from another career into it, then you can, you can apply. But it gets fairly competitive, I'd say, especially Tech and Media Club. We have a bit of a competition going with them. There's Design and Innovation Club. So although we all work together, we do compete for very good talent within LBS community.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Any other questions that you guys wish to answer from what we have? By the way, are any of you guys involved in any sports club? Or know anyone that is? I think that's the only thing.
Yeah.
Cindy was, I think she missed the webinar today, but she was, I wanted her to speak on some of her experiences. I know that they have like races, competitions and stuff like that. Very competitive from what I've heard.
Yeah, I'm not part of any clubs, but I do know the people who are part of them really enjoy them, and it's another great way to mix between classes and cohorts, and also they make use of Regent's Park, which is literally just a stone's throw away from campus. So I would say that's probably one of my biggest regrets, not joining a club or a sports club or a social club. So dance would at least have been a nice middle ground.
having said that, that there is a lot of, so I'm not part of the sports clubs either, but we have the men's kind of rugby and women's touch rugby club, and you can be only a social member of the club, which means you don't play, but you go for only the socials. So that's kind of one option if you want to get involved that way. We also have other spin-off groups. So for example, the NBA 2021s, we have something called the Booty Busters. Basically, one of the girls who was a previously semi-professional tennis player in my class, she loves to exercise and curate workouts for other people. So she started doing this in autumn, and now we exercise in Regent's Park, and we have it 3 times a week when a classmate will come and do a workout for all of us. So even though, you know, it's not an official sports club, there's always other initiatives that classmates are joining, and everyone's welcome to come. I think one of the other questions was, can everyone join all these clubs? Yeah, absolutely. It's very easy to sign up. Everyone's welcome. It doesn't matter what program you're from. You're kind of LBS in the LBS community.
Yeah, and I also just want to add that you can definitely bring your own ideas. It's not that, you know, these are the only clubs that you can join. If you have an idea that you want to propose, we are so open to that, and you can put something together for yourselves. So it's quite flexible, because we know that everyone comes from all walks of life, and people have different hobbies, different interests. So if you feel like there is kind of like a gap in what we have, so you can definitely kind of introduce that as well. I don't know if we probably have time for one last question, because I'm just seeing that we've nearly topped the hour now. So if anyone wants to pick a last question, and then we can close off the webinar. Yeah.
Yeah, I can take Nicolette's question about how our club's adapting to the new normal given the pandemic. So I think many of the clubs put even more emphasis now on personal development. There are a lot of modeling skills workshops, companies presentations, a lot of speaker events. Some of them are more focused on professional topics adapted to these times of pandemic, developing your networking skills during pandemic, and also some more fun activities such as quizzes, comedy shows, and Zoom workouts.
That's great. Sounds super fun. So I just want to finally say thank you to all of you for, you know, your input, your insights today, and for being open and transparent with us. I hope that all of our listeners found it insightful, and hopefully this gives them kind of a taste as to kind of what the community is like at LBS. We hope that you all enjoyed it, and if you have any further questions about any of these sort of clubs, you can definitely feel free to reach out to our designated recruitment teams, and we can definitely help you with answering those questions or sharing some of the resources that we have online. But for now, thank you so much for joining us, and we hopefully hope to see you in some of our future webinars. And thank you, ladies, so much for joining me today. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.